Muslims around the world are condemning the terrorist attack that happened in Paris and Beirut last week, and also defending themselves from the Islamophobia that these attacks have arisen. Now, we see, Nick, that immediately we've heard threats about dissolving mosques in France, attacks against immigrants and Muslims all around the world, calling all the Muslims responsible for this. Now they're coming forward, they're saying different hashtags, mainly in social media. Terrorism has no religion, Muslims are not terrorists, not in my name. Several hashtags of many Muslim members of the Muslim faith that are saying, this is not who we are, this is not what we stand for, and we condemn these actions, and please do not connect the Muslim faith to these attacks.
Right, and I think if you get caught in that social media loop, back and forth, the arguing, you're this or not this, stand against this, hashtag this, you're just gonna go crazy. Mm-hmm. You're just gonna go crazy because I don't think it reflects society. It does, I mean the extremes, but I don't think it reflects the everyday society, okay? Americans aren't walking or marching down the street going, get the Muslims out of the country because they're causing these terrorist attacks. I mean, social media just goes crazy with this kind of stuff and they eat it up.
But what about the leaders of opinion? We have already presidential candidates, specifically from the GOP, coming forward and denouncing the Muslim world, saying we are not going to allow Syrian refugees. Several governors in different states, they say we're not going to allow Syrian refugees in this place. We're only going to allow refugees that are Christian.
That you can't deny.
You can't deny that. Ted Cruz comes out and say, and Marco Rubio sends a fundraising effort based on the fact and the fear of Muslims, installing this Islamophobia, not only here, but also in France. In France right now, the biggest is the foreign minister coming and saying, I'm going to look into every mosque in here, and whatever mosque is, shares fear and terror into their speech, we're going to dissolve them. So definitely we're going to see an Islamophobia sentiment arise, specifically because if you tie that to the migrant crisis that Europe is facing, it's very easy to point fingers and to blame a whole group of people for what ISIS is doing.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, and they're going to have to go through that. But at the same time, though, you'll see the Democrats, for example, on the other side saying, we shouldn't, pin this on every single Muslim. Obama has gone as far as to say, I'm not even going to use that word Islam when I'm talking about terrorism. I'm not even going to mention Muslims when I'm talking about extremism and terrorism. These people are just as much Muslim as the KKK is Christian, so not at all. So don't draw that parallel. And then conservatives are like, what? You're not gonna call them what they are, So hey, two sides, left, right. Everyone has their left and their right, right?
Yeah,
Europe as well.
Yeah. Immediately, the leaders of the Muslim countries came forward and they say we are not supporting this whatsoever. We renounce what they did. Hassan Rouhani, president of Iran, said this is a crime against humanity. The Qatari foreign minister Khaled Al-Attiyah described them as heinous acts. So we know that the Muslim countries are not supporting terrorism, but yet there's this idea that Muslims are the source of the problem, because if we take a hard look at it, at the heart of this crusade of ISIS, it's a religious element. One of their main objectives is to bring apocalypse back to the earth and reset the kingdom of Allah. Yeah. That is religious at its core. And that's the problem, because the secular countries are very good at separating their government decisions and their religious decisions. In case of ISIS, the religious fuels the action. So it's really, really hard to separate this from completely from the religion, but at the same time, we cannot just blame every Muslim when we know that it's less than 1% of Muslims, billions of Muslims in this planet, and just a 1% or less than a 1% are involved in terrorist attacks.
Right, no, it's true, and you did raise a good point, because there are some passages in the Quran that could be seen as very controversial. Things along the lines of, if he's not a Muslim, you should kill him, things like that. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but it's that gist. And then these extremists grab hold of those one-liners here and there, and they run with it, right? They have a great time with those, and then they use that to justify everything that they're doing. But at the same time, like you said, such a small amount of people. I mean, look at, all the shootings, the mass shootings that go on here. We never talk about whether or not they identify with Christianity or not. We don't even get into their religion. But if they were Muslim, we would not hesitate to, pin that as a terrorist attack in this country.
Exactly. Many are asking to revisit the idea of open borders in Europe because of the speculations that the terrorists hid and made themselves look like migrants on their way into Europe.